And welcome back, everybody, to week five, part two episode of the Plainview podcast. I believe this is number six if you're keeping tally at home. Um, like we talked about earlier this week, we are actually going to do the previews of the week itself and the Auburn preview on this episode. So we're going to jump right into it. We talked about it right before we got on. There's four main games this week that they have playoff impact. They or I guess three of them do, and the other one is just kind of like I guess what I said earlier is a fraud alert, you know? So, and we'll talk about that one first with it being Notre Dame and Arkansas. Notre Dame is 0 and 3. Uh Still ranked, right? Are they still ranked?
Yeah, they were
They're
ranked
are
eight.
they 0 and 3 or 0 and 2?
Oh, they're 0 and
They're 1
2.
and 2. They're 1
1
and
and
2
2.
now, but
Okay.
they are still ranked
They're
because
1
their
and
two
2.
losses were to Miami and Texas A&M, who are both in the
Correct.
top 10.
Okay. So they're 1 and 2. They're still ranked. They're going into Fayetteville, Arkansas to play Arkansas this week. Um, I think this game against Arkansas for Notre Dame is going to give you the best view of what they're going to look like this year. I don't think that Miami was a good game because Miami, unless Florida State pulls out some crazy stuff, I think Miami is going to win the ACC this year. I think that's a safe bet. I mean, you also have Georgia Tech too, but I think Miami is the safe bet. And then A&M. I mean, I'm not going to do the 8-4 joke again. I've already done it three times on this podcast. Like it's A&M. You know, they do the same thing every single year. So I think this Arkansas game in Fayetteville will be the best like predictor of what you're going to get from Notre Dame this year.
Sure, I think I don't think there's pressure on Notre Dame, but there's not like true implications. Like if Notre Dame loses this game, like, you know, Marcus isn't like, "Oh, I'm going to lose my job."
Mhm.
You just went to the national championship. It's more of a Mike Norvell situation like last year. It's like, this is a fluke year. This is, maybe it's some kind of rebuild that, people aren't looking at Notre Dame being like, all right, like, that's weird. They're not contenders. They're frauds this year, but they're not looking at it as a program, as a failure, because again, they just went to the national championship. On the flip side, you have the Arkansas Gators, basically, that, this is supposed to be their year. They continue to ride the hopium after a 4-8, 5-7 year, and Taylor Green's supposed to be, God himself, which honestly he kind of has. But they just lack the ability to win.
Defense.
And
They lack defense.
well,
I was about to
yes,
say it falls on defense and coaching at that
and
point.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
mean,
the fact that Sam Pittman, I mean, he's cheap. So that's about it. Like I
oh,
said, I
absolutely.
think I mean, again, I this is probably an unpopular opinion. I think Petrino's done well since he's been there. I mean, he's got the offense moving pretty well. Yeah, whatever. He's got the offense moving decent. I mean, I don't think it's an offensive issue. Now, say what you will, again, Taylor Green kind of bailing him out, whatever. But I just don't think the issue is with Sam Pittman.
My only issue about Arkansas's offense is that when it goes, it is full force, train on the tracks. But the opposing defense doesn't derail them. It is their own coaching staff that will absolutely derail that offensive train. It like go back and watch the Memphis game, and it's like, oh yeah, Arkansas looks really good. And then there was like a series of 3 drives where it was like, what are they doing? Who is calling play calls right now?
Well, and honestly, that does make sense what you're saying because if you think about it, it's like I've said, South Alabama mentioned. It's like I've said with South Alabama is like they
Same
can,
family.
yeah, yeah. They can go through a normal game and it'd be totally fine, right? Like, hey, just run through the script and get up by like 10 points and don't worry about the rest, like just finish the game. It's the situational stuff. And that is, I think, what you're saying, Garrett, with it comes down to coaching. It's just like, okay, we're, 7 minutes left in the third quarter. We're up by 2 touchdowns. Let's, try to burn some clock here. Let's try to win this game on the long run.
This is episode 6.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're episode 6 in, and if I just said Bobby Petrino sucks, Garrett would have been like, Petrino's not the problem. Nick does not know ball. Like, it's just, oh well, the sky's blue. Nope, it's red right now.
I would have agreed with you.
Yeah,
I would have agreed with you.
yeah, no. So
He had that.
whatever.
He had the light joke in the chamber since we hopped on. I just want to point that out.
I would have agreed with you.
But yeah, like I said, I think this is gonna be more for me. It's gonna be more telling of Notre Dame than it is Arkansas. I mean, I don't really expect much out
Well, we've
of.
seen Arkansas for the last 6 years,
Yeah,
so we
exactly.
know what we're getting.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a different version of Arkansas. It's like instead of, getting their backs blown out, it's, oh, we're gonna lose a 1 point game to Memphis. So, yeah. Moving on to our second game on our slate, LSU and Ole Miss. And I really think this is going to be a clash of styles because every game that LSU has played this year, essentially, trying to pull it up here. There they are. I mean, LSU has won 17-10 against Clemson, 23-7 against La Tech, 20-10 against Florida, and then they blew out Southeastern Louisiana. Congratulations, but they are. It's almost like a throwback team to where defense really does win the game. Now, granted, again, like look who they played. They've played Clemson, who we've talked about has struggled. Florida, who everybody knows they've struggled. Look at DJ Lagway, and then La Tech and Southeastern Louisiana. So this will be a true test for them. That and on the other side of the ball, Ole Miss is a highly offensive team that beat Arkansas that we just talked about by 1 touchdown. So I don't again like is this a fraud alert here? Like is LSU are they really going to rely that much on defense, which doesn't seem right because Brian Kelly for all I've seen Brian Kelly, he's not necessarily been like a defensive guru. Um yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. So it's like are we looking at Ole Miss potentially getting a blowout win here and then Lane Kiffin's probably going to put something on Twitter.
I don't think you're going to see a blowout win. Honestly, if Ole Miss were to somehow walk into Death Valley and come out with a W, I think you begin to see really kind of the final implosion of Brian Kelly, because supposedly, like we talked about with Arkansas, this was supposed to be the return of LSU this year. You had Heisman hopeful Garrett Nussmeier. Your defense is supposedly rebuilt and kind of
And they're a
reminiscent
top
of
5 team.
yeah. You're reminiscent of your 2019 team. I mean, you've got kind of athletes everywhere, and you're kind of squeezing out games. You know,
Well, and one thing too, just for note, Garrett, they are playing in Oxford. Like the game,
oh, I'm so sorry.
the
My
game is
bad.
in Oxford,
I apologize.
so it's a 3:30 game there. So I think that I mean obviously that leans more into Ole Miss's favor.
Yes.
I think it'll be a more down and dirty kind of game. But not in like it's good defense. There's a lot of mistakes. I'm not sold on either team. LSU has not looked like the number 3 team in the country, and Ole Miss has not looked like a top 15 team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ole Miss has had better spurts than LSU. I think there are times that Ole Miss hits its normal groove, they'll fall out of it pretty quick. But at that point, they're up 14, 17 points. But again, like when they played Kentucky, they did not look good. Even against, well, Tulane, they looked fine, but it's Tulane and Tulane's on off year. But whatever you say, like LSU's just not beating the teams that they should by the amount that they should and looking the way they should as the number 3 team. So I think it's just going to be I don't necessarily have a prediction. Again, I think it's just going to be a dirty game and somebody's going to win it and just kind of be happy they walk away with a win and then try and fix things down the road because I think while this is again a top 10 matchup for the most part, there's tougher games to come for both teams. So you can't just the eye test is not there for just the numbers, the
Yeah.
ranking.
And then our third game, which I mean, this game, I don't think it has really any play. It does have playoff implications, but I think both these teams are going to make it into the college football playoff anyways. Oregon and Penn State, 7:30 game at Penn State, whiteout game if I'm not mistaken, if I read that correctly. This is a big game. Um, I think Oregon's going to win. I think that I don't think Drew Aller has really improved as much as everybody thought he would this year. Um, don't get me wrong, they've got a pretty good running back room, Penn State does. So unless Penn State makes it like a more grinding game and controls time of possession, if they don't get careful, I think it could get ugly. And I think Oregon's going to win by 10 points. Like, I just don't think the, that Penn State has made the leaps and bounds that everybody is making him out to be and being the number 3 team.
Oh yeah, I mean Penn State is Penn State. I mean, what you see is what you get. They're not going to put up points very quickly, and if Oregon comes in and starts throwing in, starts throwing on the scoreboard, I think it's going to get ugly very quickly. I mean, we all know Oregon scores in droves, and Penn State. I mean, you lost a big portion of your playmaking ability in Tyler Warren, 44 last year. He's not there. I think some of their receiving room graduated, and I don't know. And like you said, Drew Aller's not really gotten leaps and bounds better like he was supposed to.
Yeah.
I'll go on I agree with both of you. I think you're seeing the whole of Tyler Warren, and it was a gimmick offense, and now it's like, hey, Drew Aller, like fill the hole
Yeah,
and be the
pick it
good
up.
quarterback. And now you're seeing like, okay, Tyler Warren kind of bailed Drew Aller out of a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I think if this is like a Michigan team coming in here, sure, you have whiteout night game. Oh yeah, it's gonna be some crazy, crazy game, and it's gonna be super low scoring. But somebody that I don't think's been talked about yet is Dante Moore and how good he has looked filling in the role for Dylan Gabriel. I mean, dude is he's waited his turn, um, and they just have such a deep running back room on top of that just to complement. Plus with the like the Decarian Morgan at receiver. I mean, it's stacked, but their defense with Dan Lanning is going to stay, relevant. So I think it's a matchup issue. And like you said, Garrett, I think the speed of Oregon is going to just kind of outpace Penn State. And I mean, this may be a hot take, but I think they silence the crowd first, second quarter, and the
Pretty
whiteout
early
kind of
on.
becomes hey, we got our clip at kickoff.
Yeah.
Kind of, it becomes that.
Yeah.
And then finally, in that same time slot, the SEC matchup of the week, uh, Alabama and Georgia. And don't do that too loud. Half this household will start barking, and I'm not talking about Ranger. Um, so this matchup, typically, I think this year, if it was the same matchup just with different teams, I don't really think we would be talking about it, but I think it's the fact that it's Georgia who has struggled against Alabama over the past several years under Kirby Smart. And granted, that is with Nick Saban being the coach. But even last year, granted, they almost came back in the second half and won, but they have struggled against Bama every single year that Kirby Smart has been there. Now it does help that the game is 7:30, Athens, Georgia, and they're doing a blackout game. Um, I think Georgia is gonna get the win. I do want to make a point though that for later on in the season and maybe even the college football playoff if they make it, Gunnar Stockton has got to learn how to throw the ball. Um, and I might be wrong in saying this. Maybe he can. Maybe I'm just not watching the games enough. But he's making a lot of plays with his legs. He's a better passing version of Jackson Arnold. Like he can make plays with his legs. He makes throws decently well if the receiver's name is Zachariah Branch. But he's still underthrown a lot. He's still inaccurate. And I don't think I think if he doesn't turn that up, I think you're going to see an issue with Georgia later on down the road this year.
I think I've got a couple stats for y'all real quick. So Kirby is 1-6 against Alabama since taking over at Georgia. They not once have they played at Georgia. It's crazy. 7 games, and they have not once played at Georgia.
Hmm.
It's either been a neutral site or at Bryant Denny. Crazy stat, right?
Yeah.
Georgia has won 33 straight home games.
Ooh.
I'm just going with statistics. Like, yes, I know Bama's the hotter team right this second if you want to look at it on paper because they skull drug Wisconsin and ULM.
That's it.
I can stat pad against, Wisconsin just got beat 27-3 by Maryland.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not worried about stat padding. I get that Ty Simpson, they were like, oh, well, they only let up 1 sack after the Florida State game. And, he's been, passing 80%. It's like,
It's
dude,
easy to do
the
against
line,
Slocum High
like,
School.
Wisconsin, the linebackers look like me. Like, big, slow.
Well, okay, let's
It's
just take that, right, talking about stats. Between the two quarterbacks, Stockton is 63 of 89 for 4 touchdowns. Simpson is 64 of 89 for 9 touchdowns. So besides 5 touchdown throws, I don't think they're that much different besides Stockton's legs.
That's what I was going to say. You're not even taking into account the rushing touchdowns that Stockton has this year.
That's purely throwing. But I think the mentality here for Alabama is you're trying to stop the bleeding.
I think just the last time that Ty had any kind of pressure at Florida State away, the offensive line just fell apart and he just kind of started scrambling for his life. I think Georgia's a better team than Florida State right now.
Oh yeah.
I know Florida State's very gimmicky right now, and but again, they're in a tight game against UVA. But again, I think Florida State had a great atmosphere, but it was a 2:30 game, and it was pouring rain. This is a blackout night game at Georgia with a lot of pent up, pissed off fans from the last 7 games, basically 6 games, and they finally have a chance to do it at home. It's going to be rocking, and so Alabama has to replicate what happened last year and get up early to quiet the crowd a little bit and then just fend off a resurgence if Alabama wants to win. But again, I think Georgia and I think Kirby's being a master gaslighter and just convincing his team that nobody thinks he's got a chance. Look at all the past, and I think that's going to be It's going to be a hey, we care more. We're going to be flying around to the ball, and if Alabama comes out with any ounce of like timidness, like it's going to be it's going to be rough.
Well, and one more thing for me too is that I know it was mentioned that there's a slight chance of rain in Athens, and if that's the case, I think that's going to play into Georgia's favor even more because we've seen how atrocious Bama's run game has been. Granted, if I'm not mistaken, Jam Miller is expected to be back this week, but in the same token, it's not really the running back room necessarily. Don't get me wrong, Jam Miller is by far the best running back on that team, but you can't run
They
if
don't like
no,
running the ball.
yeah, they don't like running the ball, and you can't run if nobody's blocking.
Oh yeah.
So I guess that gets us into our main topic for this podcast, the Auburn and A&M game. Auburn obviously coming off a pretty heartbreaking loss to Oklahoma, and A&M coming off a bye week. Um, this has turned into a little bit of a mini rivalry game between Auburn and A&M. You know, like last year's game was incredible, right? It was how many wasn't it, four overtimes or something like that?
Yeah.
Um, winning on a 2 point conversion and a failed 2 point conversion for A&M. You go back a couple of years ago, A&M was the first game that Auburn had under Cadillac Williams when he was the interim head coach before Hugh Freeze took over. And that, I mean, kind of righted the ship in a sense for Auburn's program. So I mean, there's a lot of recent history in this game. Um, I'm going to be honest. I think I know A&M's ranked 9 right now, but I think Auburn's got a really good shot of just going in there and like making a statement saying, "Hey, just because we lost to Oklahoma, I don't think we're dead." Um, I don't believe in A&M's defense at all whatsoever. They have let up more than 20 points every game this season, and two of those games are UTSA and Utah State. And then they won 41-40 against Notre Dame, that, as we have talked about, is potentially not where they're supposed to be, quote unquote. So I think as long as Auburn can get the ball rolling on offense, I think this is a sound, maybe not a blowout, but a sound victory by Auburn.
If Auburn plays kind of the same conservative way that they played against Oklahoma, it will not bode well for them. Um, Texas A&M has, I'm not going to say a great, but they have an aggressive D line, looking to get into the backfield very quickly. And I think if they try to do this whole, if Auburn tries to do this whole, all right, let's kind of get, Jackson Arnold moving on the ground a little bit, he's going to get ate up. Now, Texas A&M has a not so great secondary, which is what most people have been able to exploit. Um, and I mean, I even watched the Notre Dame game today with them for last week, and I mean, Jeremiah Love. I mean, he's going to get his yards, but I mean, the D line was kind of all over the place, pressuring Carr and getting him on the move and making him hurry up his throws. Um, and I'm gonna be honest. You don't throw to Cam Coleman, you lose. You don't get your running backs going, you lose. I mean, 15 touches between two backs, that's atrocious. Uh, the offense is going to have to look drastically different than it has the last four games in order for them to have a chance, I think.
I think with the and somebody can fact check me on this. but I saw something where the corner from last year that guarded Cam Coleman is still there. Cam Coleman in that last game had 7 catches for like 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, like getting burnt the entire game. I know for the most part the same secondary is from last year as a core group. Um, Texas A&M's defense is just not what it was. Texas A&M offense looks the exact same as what it was last year. And if they don't feed Le'Veon Moss, which he's got 170 yards through 3 games. To be fair, his first game he only had like 3 carries. But Le'Veon Moss, he had 20 carries against Notre Dame. But at the end of the day, if Texas A&M goes up, then that's where Auburn's rush defense has to stop them because that's when they like to run. Um, Marcel Reed has not super impressed me. I think a lot of it has been more the separation with Mario Craver at receiver, who does lead the SEC. And if Auburn does not have Jay Crawford out there, the lockdown corner that gets 0 stats because there are just no passes thrown to him. If Jay Crawford's out, like that's going to be tough. And then Casey Concepcion as your number 2, that's like 6'6", that runs a 4.4, who torched Auburn last year. That's where it's not the first and down that I'm worried about. It's the third and long that he's streaking, gone. That's where I think it can bite Auburn in the ass. So I think Jackson Arnold just Hugh Freeze said it during his press conference. It was like we have told Jackson this week, like, you have got to let the ball go, like let it fly.
Somebody listens to the Plainview podcast.
Hugh Freeze does. So I think, it depends. I think we'll know pretty quickly in the first 3 drives how the game's going to go. I think it's going to be that quick, at least as far as like the trend of the game. Like, okay, if Auburn's not a huge, like, Auburn does not fluctuate their game plan from the start of the game to the end on offense.
True.
If
True.
they're going to continue to try their game plan
Yeah.
from the first drive to the last drive, whether they are up by 60 or down by 60.
Yeah.
I
think the saving grace could be in that, as we know, Auburn's defensive line is solid. It's a force.
Stout.
And if one thing that I noticed against Notre Dame is that Reed really struggled with pressure and getting pressure early.
Jared Smith.
Yeah, he's a small guy, and he can't take very many hits. It's kind of been his thing. Dude can fly like lightning, but again, I used this term earlier before we got started. Glass cannon, can explode, but he's only got so much life before.
Sylvester Smith is standing over his bed as we speak.
Yeah, and I think that's where, if Moss has to take more of the workload, like you said, that's how they like to use them. Air them out, and then when everybody's spread out, hey, Moss is ripping them up the middle, to the outside. And if he's having to take workload early and kind of get him worn down through the game, I think that lessens his ability to kind of really put the nail in the coffin like they like to do with him. But again, Auburn's really going to have to do a good job. The defense is going to have to do a good job at keeping them out of the red zone. Because once they get into the red zone, Reed's legs become a lot bigger threat than they are from the opposing 35.
So, just to steer the conversation a little bit different direction here, I'm going to say something that probably sounds a little blasphemous. But one thing I want to see this game early is I want to see Jackson Arnold throw a pick.
Get him calm down, just to get him. settled.
Oh, fuck, I finally got it out of the way.
Yeah,
Like something like that. It's like, oh,
yeah,
okay, it's good. Hey, cool now. So I don't have to worry about
yeah.
throwing my first interception of the year. Like, just go ahead and
Well, shoot, even in Oklahoma, they said he's thrown like what 200 and something. It's like 240 passes without an interception or something like that, which I think puts him at like the leader in the FBS.
So that's great. I need him to throw one.
Yeah,
Because yeah, that's not a record I want him to have when he's rushing the ball for 20 times for negative 11 yards.
yeah,
So I want him to just throw one like on a slant or a drag or something and just like a DB. And I know Garrett, you talked about earlier, like A&M's DBs aren't great, but like just a really good read by the DB, jumps it, maybe snags it right out of like Singleton or Simmons' hands, something like that. I just want
yeah.
him to go ahead and get it out the way. That way he can be like, okay, the deed is done. It's over with. You can get off my back about not throwing interceptions. Because I think if that happens, I think it's not going to be a Peyton Thorne situation where like, oh, I threw another one. Oh, I threw another one. Like it's
Yeah,
not going to be something like that.
Breaks out in hives.
yeah.
It's not
Spirals.
it's not going to be anything like that. I think he's going to be like, okay, I can be a little bit more loose. Like
Hmm.
it's not the end of the world if I throw one. There's still and that's why I say get it out of the way early. Because I
Hmm.
feel like if that opens up early and his mind kind of clicks, it's just okay, like I can be a little bit more dangerous with the ball and it be okay. Like I don't have to tuck and run every single time. That and hopefully that makes him feel a little bit more comfortable. Going back to what we talked about earlier this week about him going through his reads a little bit faster and making it more natural and not thinking but play.
Right, right. I hope too we get to see a little bit more of Perry Thompson now that Horatio Fields is out. Unfortunately, I really do hate that. I like the guy. Um, everyone needs a veteran receiver.
My
Uh,
favorite player,
my favorite
no.
player's gone. But I really hope that we kind of get to see the Auburn of old a little bit. Um, and that's run the dang football, please.
Run
Um,
run the ball and then have Courtney Taylor on one side and Devin Aromashadu on the other. Go.
yeah,
I think one of the things that we also are overlooking is how atrocious tight end play has been this year.
Oh,
It's
Preston
been
Howard. Oh my God, I forgot we didn't mention him. Dude, that he needs to kick rocks. He is bad. When I saw hit the ball get thrown to him and when the ball was coming towards him and he says, "Ooh," like, oh,
yeah.
what are we
Well,
doing? Catch the
we
ball.
saw that against the fact that you're against South. You get rocked, and then you played scared the rest of the game, and you proceeded to drop every other pass after, and then go to Norman and continue to do the same thing. That's bad. I miss Brandon Frazier, who's on his 10th year. Like I just know like tight ends are such a big part of Hugh Freeze's offense to be that safety valve that I was kind of talking about last week or last episode, where they don't really use the running back as much as the check down as the tight end. Just something I was watching up on, especially when they had Fairweather. I mean, he was the ultimate check down. Um, Preston Howard is not, you know,
Good, not
the
good.
guy to,
That's end of
yeah.
statement, period.
And so it's just like where I don't know if you want to see more Brandon Frazier or Ryan G. Like I don't know, but I just know, and I know Hollis Davidson, I think that's his name, got suspended indefinitely, but because he got a THC vape. So stupid. But I
Don't
just
do
think,
drugs, kids.
yeah, I think if Preston Howard comes out and dropping the check downs, like you got to make a change. Like you got to either that or if he makes a play, sure, go ahead. But I mean, look at Hughes' track record with tight ends and how much he uses them, especially like an Evan Ingram. Um, if he continues to want to use them, he's gotta make a change, because if it is Texas A&M and Preston Howard's the one getting the checkdowns on a 3rd and 2, and that's the play call, and he drops it in critical situations, then you're going to continue to have problem, because it happened in the Oklahoma game, it happened in South game, plenty of 3rd down options. They like to go to tight ends, and you don't get it.
Yeah. And secondly, you know, that also plays on Arnold's ability to run is now because the tight end is a threat in the pass game. Oh, we can just run out, a naked boot, and who do you cover? Because if you pick the tight end, oh, he can scramble for a couple yards and get a first down. But if you commit to Arnold, all right, we can just dump it down to the tight end. You put defensive players in kind of a lose-lose situation. But when you have that crucial element that isn't producing, well, now Arnold's less confident. And then number two, we also know that he's much less likely to throw the ball, which I think is going to play into his ability to use his legs. If he wants to be successful, is that he's going to have to let it fly early. He's going to have to slow down that pass rush. If he wants to even have a hope of scrambling and picking up some of those rushing yards or even those design QB runs. And the only reason I say that is because you have a Texas A&M defense that practices every week against a faster and more agile guy.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And to go back to the tight end topic just real quick, because I am pretty. We're lucky I'm not yelling right now. I know the
I
audio
woke
gets
a
messed.
demon up in
Yeah,
Graceland.
I was about to say I know the audio gets messed up, so I'm going to try to not get animated. But Preston Howard and Brandon Frazier have the exact same stat line for the year. They're both 2 receptions for 15 yards. Preston Howard has only caught 2 catches this year. Um, Brandon
8 or 9
Frazier's
targets.
Yeah, I was about to say Brandon Frazier, he caught his only 2 during the Baylor game, but Hugh, Hugh, put him in, Hugh, put him in. I'm sorry, man. I'm just reading stats like this. I need to stop. I'm gonna get animated. I just can't get over the fact that we were sitting there watching him at the game, and the ball is thrown to him, and it's not like Jackson Arnold's throwing a 90-mile-an-hour fastball.
It
He's
was a
sitting
good
there,
ball. Yeah.
yeah, hit him,
Well,
yeah,
no,
hit him.
he was hearing footsteps. I mean, it was simply that. Like, he got rocked that one play, and after that, like,
Maybe he should try being deaf.
yeah.
Um, I, I gotta quit. One take. That's it. One take. The
Auburn
frog.
secondary too is going to have to, pay extra attention across that middle because one thing they talked about in Texas A&M last game is that Reed loves to throw digs, and if one thing I think that Auburn has kind of struggled with defensive wise is that once they kind of get the ball moving through the air, they kind of have a hard time stopping it um, through the air. Um, if they get pressure and can kind of get the quarterback down before the ball gets out, that's kind of where Auburn's found their success. But as far as stopping the ball with, turnovers or pass breakups, it's just not really been there. And I think if they allow, you know, uh, what's his last name, Nick? Mario
Craver.
Craver, thank you. If they allow Craver and Concepcion to get going and get going early, I think that's going to bode very bad for Auburn trying to play catch up.
I think Keldrick Falk just needs to put Marcel Reed in a crucifix. I mean, it's simply put, like, first drive, like, I want to see a sack or two, and I don't want to see like
Yeah.
a technical sack. Like, I want to see like a blind side, like, oh, like,
Spine buster.
sorry, bud, you're not hurt. I'm glad you're not hurt for the year, but your shoulder's out of place.
Ouch.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
no.
I think that's critical. I
Well,
think
if
that's
that hit
critical to
comes
hit
from
early.
anywhere, I mean, whether he takes off and runs or whether he gets sacked, I mean, it's just he can't take hits, which kind of
DJ
those
Durkin is drooling right
yeah,
now.
I mean, you get a clean shot or even a not so clean shot on him. I mean, it's not going to end well he just doesn't have the mass to, to take that hit and keep going.
Yeah.
Um, which I mean, but that's again if you can get your hands on him.
Yeah. Well, and another thing too, kind of to go to your point, Nick, about the passes, or Garrett, sorry, about the pass like the drags and stuff. I think, yeah, not Nick. Not, I'm making sure I gave credit where credit was due. Sorry. Um, but
The
one
ball
thing,
knower.
yeah, true ball. If you would consult the graph, um, I think linebacker play is going to be crucial. I think this week too. I mean, we know that the linebackers can get to the quarterback. Like, I'm not worried about them like on a blitz or anything, but kind of to your point of being able to help with those drags, being able to help with those slants, those underneath passes, I think that's going to be big. Because I would probably say that's out of DJ Durkin's defense, and I'm not even saying like it's a big question mark, but that's probably the biggest like question on the field is the linebackers, and just their capacity to play the position fully, if that makes sense.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Well, with Nick talking about in one of our first podcasts, I think Xavier Atkins has stepped up and has absolutely filled shoes. I mean, as a freshman, doing the things that you're doing in 3 games, it's impressive. It's very impressive, and to it's one thing to make plays, but it's another thing to be in position to make plays. And I think Atkins does that really well as a young guy. Uh, and I think that's what a lot of people kind of misunderstand about some of your best athletes on the field. It's not that they're just great athletes, it's that they understand where to be and when to be there. Uh, and I think Xavier Atkins has showcased that ability quite well so far. And even Woodyard, I think Woodyard sometimes makes up for his lack thereof with his athletic ability, which is great because when he commits, brother commits, full head of steam. But I think you're gonna see a good game out of Atkins, and I think that in order for the defense to kind of get going early, you're gonna see him make some crucial plays early on to kind of jumpstart jumpstart the momentum.
Another player too that's not a linebacker but a help safety. Eric Winters is a freshman, number 25. Like he's another guy that plays like a linebacker. Dude's stocky for a safety, but can make tackles around the field. I think he and Sylvester Smith they cover the borders great. If they will step in a little bit and try and cover the inside a little bit more, um, I think that can help. But I think at the end of the day, like against Oklahoma, I think the defense took a step in the right direction. I think they got bailed out a little bit by a couple, whether you want to say missed calls, whether you want to say, the catch on the sideline for 30 yards, whatever.
Right, right,
I think they made a step in the right direction. And at the end of the day, Auburn is still only averaging or allowing an average of 30 yards on the ground. Like that is wild. And so right now they have a top 25 defense. And I just think that DJ Durkin is a smart enough coordinator that will keep Auburn no matter what happens. Auburn will be in a position to win this game. I think it just comes down to all right, like is Jackson and Hugh going to be, the Peyton Thorne experiment times two, like not in
right.
interceptions, just not being able to win the game, whether it's you take too many risks or you don't take enough risks. And is Hugh going to just continue to, set him up in areas that won't allow it? Like, is this the game that Auburn breaks through? If
Mm.
they break through, this is such a huge game for the season because if Auburn can win this game, they go into their bye week before playing Georgia at night for homecoming plus, or not homecoming, but for Cam Newton's retirement, jersey retirement. It's a night game. Nike's probably going to do something with the uniforms. I mean, you're talking about like, full showcase of the lights and everything with the light show. Um, that's the turning point of Hugh's career at Auburn. If Auburn loses this game, like, consider Myhopium gone, because it's like, how do you, again, how do you? And it's like, I get that you're going into a top 10. I would almost rather get blown out against this game at this game than than a close, we lose by a field goal. I started
Yeah.
letting the whiskey talk, and then I just started going off on my feelings.
No. I mean, I think you're right. I think it's better to have a blowout game so that way you know kind of where you stand versus to have it yanked out from under you last second.
Macro changes versus micro changes. If you lose big, that means you're going to make big changes. If you lose small, then you're going to make smaller changes. You're not going to rethink your whole mindset. And I think if they were to drop, obviously dropping Oklahoma and then dropping a big game or a big loss to A&M, I think that's when you kind of have to go back to the drawing board a little bit. And I think I think this whole Hugh Freeze experiment so far has been a lot of micro changes and micro adjustments
I
and
was
not
just about to say that.
yeah.
How many more micro changes can you make?
Yeah, it's like okay, we're gonna keep the original plan, but let's just make a tweak here, and then
Yep.
let's just make a tweak here.
Hmm.
Arguably, the only big change that he has made is when he started Hank Brown for that 1 week. And at that point, I think that was more of a here, damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Get what you want
And
real quick.
I do understand. It's like, no, I wouldn't do it over again the same, but it's tough because, again, on paper, Auburn did have a top 15 offense last year, not in scoring but in yards. And that's really, really hard to sit there and go in my press conference and be like, we had 600 yards of offense and lost by 10. The score was 31-21.
You had to
How
do
do you
that
have
math.
600? Yeah, the whiskey. How do you have 600 yards of offense and only score in the 20s? Like, that
Enter
was the
Peyton Thorne.
case. That was the case last year. And that's so, again, I'm not defending him. I'm just saying I get that it was tough to not make a huge change when your offense does put 600 yards, of offense. That's tough to, commit and say, all right, like, we have to do a complete 180. I get what you're saying though. And I think this year this could cause for again, do you bring in Deuce Knight? Do you go to a read option offense? What are you going to look at doing?
I want to be honest with you. If you bring in Deuce Knight or if you bring in Daniels, I think at that point, just make the hard pivot. Um, I mean, it already
What, for a new
happened.
coach?
Well, whether it be coaching staff, whether it be quarterback, I mean, it's already happened once at Oklahoma with him. And you go to another school, and like we said earlier in this week, you're doing the same exact thing. So again, how many micro changes are you going to have to make? You know, um, and I think if you get to once you get to the point where you go, would it be better if Deuce Knight is in the game? Just go ahead and pull the stop. Let's do it.
I
And
think I think at this point, if that question is popping in your head, I think it's too late, or it should already be done.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And whether you want to call this the Hugh Freeze experiment or the Hugh Freeze, extravaganza, whatever you want to call it, the question to be had is were were people told the truth or were they given something like Nick just said, we've got 600 yards of offense, but we just can't score. So whose fault is that? Is that your quarterback's fault or is it my fault or the coach's fault? Because if If it was a one-time thing with Peyton Thorne, but it's now becoming another precarious issue with another quarterback, your statement's kind of looking a little hollow.
Yeah.
So which is it?
Yeah, for sure. So
To be fair, I don't think last year Auburn beats Baylor.
No.
I really
No.
do think, put everything aside, since Hugh Freeze's tenure, Auburn has progressed to getting better.
Absolutely.
I think they have taken
Absolutely.
steps, and like it goes back to the micro changes. It's like, oh, good micro change, good micro change, good micro change. It's like, all right, God, like we were at 3 years. Like, okay, like I get it. You know,
Yeah.
Jackson. Now it's like Jackson Arnold just pull the trigger. Like that's the last part. Pull the
Yeah.
trigger.
Yeah.
And
throw
I
a pick.
think, yeah. And again, like I think this game can do that. I think because again, if Auburn goes in and Jackson Arnold throws for 3, 4 touchdowns, Auburn wins by 17. The narrative has 180, and Auburn is now a top 15 team going to play Georgia, and Jackson Arnold's red hot. You have a complete 180, but again, like the other side, you don't, and he has the exact same game as Oklahoma. Doesn't throw any touchdowns, or throws a couple touchdowns and just gets sacked because he's waiting on. Now you're back at it's the Auburn of old. Hugh Freeze is gone or on his way out, and it is crazy
We
how
suck
this
again.
game can it's crazy how much this game can swing these things on the outlook of the season.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, if Auburn wins, they're not cracking top 15.
I'm not talking about like
Nick, they're not doing that. Why would
see,
you?
dude? God! All right, thank you for listening to the 7th episode of whatever this is.
It's the 6th.
And 6. Thank you. All right, talk to y'all next.